Hello, everyone. This is a review of the Chagatay manual by the scholar János Eckmann. This is one of the three, basically, books if you want to learn Chagatay, or also called Eastern Turkey or Turkey. This is the language of Babur, the founder of the Mughals, among others, Alisher Navai, um, and the modern descendant of Chagatay would be Uzbek, probably, in terms of how close they are. But this is really, I think, a landmark book, as this was really the first significant manual. Eckmann was a very accomplished Turkologist. All of his papers were donated to the New York Public Library. It's where they still are today. Apparently, there's some treasures in there. Hopefully, maybe I could go see that collection someday. This was published by Indiana University Press in 1966, and this is when IU was very strong in Central Asian studies, pretty much the first program in what was then, I think it was the Uralic and Altaic department. Now it's Central Eurasian Studies, but anyway, thought I'd go through this. Now, this is not, I will say from the beginning, this is not like a nice learning textbook. I think the title being manual is pretty accurate because it's not like the Schlussel book that I've gone through on my Chagatay intro video, where it's Schlussel's book is designed as learner's textbook, and it kind of takes you through it in a very good way, sort of going from easy and working your way into more complex topics. But I think this is still worth looking at if you want to study Chagatay, because it's quite comprehensive. You get all of the grammatical components you need. You have the Persian aspects of the language, and yeah, pretty much everything you need. It's also not terribly long. Let's see, it's about 200 pages, 214 pages. We have a brief reader, and the reader has some interesting stuff in here. Babur's letter to his son Humayun. Now, unfortunately, I don't think this reproduces the original text, or the original, Arabic script letters. So obviously, this is in transcription, and well, I think I can forgive that this is kind of a weird transcription system. It does, reading it now, make it a little challenging to navigate, especially if you're used to perhaps like the International Journal of Middle East Studies system of transcription, or another academic system, Library of Congress, for example, for Arabic, Persian, and Turkish. So that could present a challenge. Although personally, I can follow this fairly clearly. What the transcription is supposed to be rendering. So we do have a nice reader. And I think the other challenge with this manual is just the typesetting and the formatting is not the most user friendly. And I've held this book in real life at libraries before, and it's not very large. So probably for the scan that I found, they probably did take the book apart. Would be nice to get a physical copy. I wonder how much that costs. At any rate, so as you can see, it's a little dense in terms of the typesetting and stuff like that. But all that aside, so that's kind of cosmetic features of the book. A lot of Eckmann's comments in here are pretty thoughtful, pretty valuable. He explains like a lot of context, historical context for certain features of the language, and I think his introduction is pretty interesting. Let's jump ahead to that. So we've got phonology to. So it talks about, the Chagatay language belongs to the Central Asian group of Turkic languages. And yeah, among the modern Turkic languages, Uzbek and New Uyghur are the most closely related to it. He goes over like the development of the language historically, and then he also mentions why it's called Chagatay, which actually before this review I didn't really know clearly, or why it's referred to as that. The word Chagatay derives from the name. Well, I knew this part, but the reason why is because Alishir Navai called it that, whereas most of the time it was referred to as Turkey. And then you get some interesting little tidbits, like the word Chagatay. The word Chagatay occurs as an ethnonym in Ottoman sources, ethnicon. So some interesting tidbits in the introduction. Yeah, here it is. The term Chagatay Tili and Chagatay Turkisi, which are supposed to have been used in the beginning of the language, in the beginning for the language of the nomadic Turks, and afterwards for that of the whole Turkic population living in the Chagatay Empire, obtained at the time of the Timurids, meaning the Turkic literary language developed in the Timurid Empire. Nevertheless, the word Chagatay, this is what I was trying to find just now, with this meaning was almost never used by authors of the 15th and 16th century, preferred the general expressions Turk Dili, Turk Alfazi, Turk Dili, Turki Lafzi, Turkcha Til, or simply Turki, Turkcha, only Navai. So Alishir Navai that I've covered on the channel before, and there's a lot of interesting articles about him out there. He uses Chagatay Lafzi as a denomination for the literary language of his time. So that's interesting. So there's some interesting stuff in here that I legitimately had no idea. And then he even goes into the sort of reception of the language and what it's called. This may seem kind of very esoteric, but I just think this sort of stuff is interesting. And he goes over kind of in an abbreviated form some of the names associated with the study of the language up to his time. Remember this is being published in the 1960s, so Central Asian studies in the United States in particular was really in its very early stages. Even mentions Fuad Koperlu, who I just made a video about. So it's quite interesting. Now, in terms of the grammar, I think it's just fine. It's very comprehensive, but how would I use this personally? I think I would not try to use this to as like my main source. What I would do, I think, is start with Schlussel's book, which I've mentioned and I cannot recommend enough. And then I would also use this at the same time. And Schlusel himself, I think, says pretty much the same thing in his grammar. To look at all the other books as well. And there's a third book by I think it's Bodroligeti. I'm remembering the last name correctly. At any rate, but this is kind of the earliest grammar in English. And I think Eckmann explains things fairly well. It's just the presentation makes it a little rough for a reader in our current, era. So I think I've kind of covered enough about this. Is just a sort of quick review or kind of a flip through. I think I would do maybe a more in-depth review if I actually sat down and studied with this. But like I said, for now, I'm not sure I would sit and use this on its own, especially with the resources. Well, mainly, the Schlusel grammar that we have now. Um, so it's an interesting book, kind of almost a historical source now itself in terms of giving us an idea of the state of the field in the 1960s. So I think that is also valuable. And I think for the next Chagatay tutorial, I may look at some of the readings Eckmann has in here, because we have this one, which is pretty interesting, Babur's Letter to a Simple Mayun. We have Babur's several selections from the Baburnama. We have description of Fargana, party at Muzaffar Mirza's house. I think I was actually just reading this in the translation of the Baburnama. And then we have something from Alishir Nabai. Oh, this is interesting. This is the Battle of Ankara between Timur and Sultan Yildirim Bayezid. So I'm going to have to track this down because I'd like to read this. The Zafarnama. That would be interesting to read in Chagatay. Seven Sleepers of Ephesus from Nabai. There's some poetry. So, and the glossary. So we do have a glossary in here, which is also helpful. Yeah. So I think overall, this is a good one to look over. Probably a little rough going for, again, not to beat a dead horse, but a little rough going in terms of ease of reading. But I think this is a very valuable manual. And, like I said, the readings that Eckmann put in here are quite interesting. So there's that as well. So thank you for watching. I hope you found this helpful. And, if you are interested in studying Chagatay and, you are looking for resources, maybe this gave you a little bit of some pointers. So thanks for watching, and I will talk to you in the next video.